Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to my podcast, Renew Motherhood. And this episode is the secret of how to find happiness. And I'd like to welcome my guest, Dr. Trevor Peterson. And I'm so grateful that you're here and joining me on my podcast. I'd like to hand it over to you. Please briefly introduce yourself.
Thanks, Blanka. It's great to be here. Yeah, so I'm Trevor Peterson. I'm a professor here at Oregon Tech and a clinical psychologist. And so I mostly teach, but I do some psychotherapy as well. So.
Yes, that's awesome. You like to talk about happiness. And I think this is a wonderful topic. Everyone wants to be happy. People are searching for happiness, and it's still something that we don't really can grab. We don't know really what it is or how to find it. So it's a broad field with different aspects. How did you come across this topic?
Yeah, so as a kid was pretty shy and introverted and really struggled to connect. I guess I always felt a little bit like an outsider, that other people had figured life out and I was missing something. Because I kind of developed some social anxiety at a young age, and so I think I always had this desire to have greater happiness, to thrive, and I didn't feel like I had quite captured it yet. And so kind of had this informal quest that began at a young age, and then as I got older, I started looking into it more formally through psychology and then clinical psychology, and then I eventually landed on positive psychology, which is the actual science of thriving and flourishing. And I spent the last decade, doing research to write a book called Overlap, The Heart of Happiness, because I found that there was tons of theories and lots of evidence-based happiness exercises. But what I wasn't finding was this kind of common denominator, a way to distill it all down to this underlying mechanism, by which happiness can actually be created on a regular basis. And by happiness, I like to define that as regular joy, significant meaning, and elevated life satisfaction. So that kind of led me to finally seeing this kind of concept keep emerging in the literature, which I've given the label of overlap to.
Yes, wonderful. Is there a main theory that you prefer or that grabbed your attention? Would you say that, oh, this was so wonderful and I just dived into, and do you have any?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's so many, it's hard to like distill it down, but one of the big studies that impacted me was done at Harvard. It's this adult, human development study that's been going on for about 80 years. It's a longitudinal study, and they tracked several men and eventually their wives to try to predict in the long run what best predicts physical health, mental health, and life satisfaction. And so they were measuring, just tons of variables, medically, socially, cognitively, to try to pin this down. And what emerged after all these years, and you may have already heard of this, was it was quality relationships were the
Wow.
best predictor of physical health, mental health, and life satisfaction.
Wow.
So
That's
that's been supported in other studies too. And so that kind of led me on this journey of like, what if quality relationships are the best investment to create happiness, what allows for that? And that kind of led me to this overlap concept.
Wow, that's amazing. I love this because this actually presents us as human beings that we are socializing. And this
Absolutely.
is where the happiness lies. So that's amazing. Wow,
Mhm.
I love this. Yes, going to your book, Overlap, The Heart of Happiness. What does the book describe and what can readers take away from this?
Yeah. So, the concept of overlap is fairly simple, and when it's not, I didn't come up with this, it's existed and people have been overlapping and figuring this out for generations, and it's been talked about in positive psychology science, but also philosophers and religious people have kind of discovered this through the years. And so one easy way to explain it is through an analogy. So if you think of a beach, and I actually had a chance to go to a beach in Florida as a kid and kind of notice these four groups of people on a beach, or these four levels of engagement with living things. So we flew to Florida, spent all this money to get there, and we park, and I started noticing that there was a highway next to this beach, and there was just tons of people. I was a young kid, but I noticed all these people were just flying by on the highway in their cars. maybe not even noticing a beach was there. And I was shocked. I'm like, you're in Florida. Like, how could you not be stopping at these gorgeous beaches? But they were doing what I would call passing. So that's level one. It's non-engagement with living things. It's when we just pass by the living people, our pets, our gardens, nature, wisdom, even passing by our own internal experiences, which can be living in a way, and we're missing it, right? So that's non-engagement. So level two were the people I noticed who parked the car, they got out and they sat on the beach, they put down their chair, put up their umbrella, and they sat there for hours. And that's increasing our engagement, but still at a pretty superficial level, right? You're kind of in the stands, but not on the court of life. You're watching, but not fully immersed. So I call that spectating, level two. Level three were the people who got up off their chair, they started walking in the shallows of the water, and they got their feet wet a little bit, right? And this is, starting to fill the water, starting to connect, but still, again, at a low level. And so I call this wading, right? You're just dabbling with living things. An example of this could be you're sitting on the couch with your partner and you're both scrolling through Pinterest, and every once in a while you make a comment to the other person, but mostly you're kind of doing your own thing in a parallel fashion, but there's not a lot of, deep interaction and collaboration going on. Mm-hmm. And then the final level, level four, the highest level of engagement with life and living things, is what I call overlap. And so these are the people on the beach that committed, they put on their snorkeling gear or their scuba diving gear, they swam out, they dove down, and they experienced this like whole new world of just wonder and awe. These reefs that were just teeming with plant and animal life, and they connected with that, they learned about it, they formed relationships, and they went away changed, just transformed by the energy they felt by learning new things and connecting with new things and being a part of this world that was just, incredible. And so that seems to be where happiness lies, is when we actively, deeply connect with the most living things in our lives, which are primarily people, but sometimes it's, wisdom in books or nature or pets. That's where it's at. That's where we form these high quality relationships where we're deeply connected with other people, not at a superficial way, but at a way where we really have empathy, we understand, we give, and we receive all the gifts being offered through those relationships. And there's just an energy and a vitality that comes that leads to a lot of joy, because joy is a natural emotion. It comes when we're meeting our biopsychosocial needs, and tons of biopsychosocial needs happen when we overlap with living things in that way.
It sounds amazing. And it sounds very simple, but still, what do you think holds people back to go there, to really dive into, to really embrace everything, to feeling it, to get engaged with nature, wisdom, other people? So still, there are so many people just holding themselves back. Actually, they want the happiness, but they are not committed to go out somehow. What do you think? What's holding them back?
Yeah, there's so many things in the book. I have this chapter called Overlap Dragons. And by dragons, I mean kind of in medieval lore, these were the beasts that would protect and like keep people out of the cave of wonder, like of treasure, keep people back from vitality. And there's a lot of dragons that keep us from overlap, and they can be as simple as distraction, right? I mean, if I am on my phone like this all day long, I'm not even noticing my child that's a highly living thing that I could be overlapping with. If I'm like this, I'm not engaging with my spouse, or so. Right. Distraction, and there's so many devices and things that are highly stimulating that can distract us from things we actually value much, much more. Depletion, right? If we're just too busy, we may pass by living things, and we might get exhausted by the pace of our life to where we don't have the energy left at the end of the day to overlap with our child. We're just exhausted. We go straight to bed, and we don't have that conversation with our kid. We don't put them on our lap and read a book to them and connect with them and learn about their day, and and strengthen that relationship. Fear, right? I had social anxiety. That was my big barrier. I just, for whatever reason, had all these worries about how I was presenting myself, if I was acceptable, right? And so that kept me avoiding opportunities to connect, because they caused me anxiety, and avoidance is the number one behavioral symptom of anxiety, is we pull back from things that scare us. And so that's something we have to overcome. We have to learn to step outside our comfort zone and see the signals that we're doing that, which are sometimes the brain and body sending us these alarms like, oh no, you're stepping outside your comfort zone, pull back to homeostasis and equilibrium, pull back to where there's no stress. We have to take that as a good sign that we're stepping outside, and to have the courage to keep doing that, and to appreciate the reward that comes only when we do that. So that's another one. Sometimes there's shame that can keep us holding back. There's depression, right? That sometimes comes after depletion, which we just, our mood is so low that, we're having a hard time finding the reason to go out, or we don't believe it'll help. So tons of barriers, and these sometimes do require help, right? From a friend, a family member, or a professional to work through that social anxiety, to work through that depression, to learn effective ways to connect, to overcome maybe shame or other things, right? Sometimes anger can be a barrier, or, I mentioned fear, but sometimes just judgment, right? If we view half of humanity, maybe who is a part of a different political party, as evil people, right? We're probably not going to put the energy to want to overlap with them because we've already labeled them as something that we think is negative or that we should fear. And so sometimes we have to overcome some of those arbitrary barriers where maybe there's a lot of life and value in a group of people that we've ostracized, and to open up the possibility to connect with them. And so some of it's fostering our curiosity, right? If we go on a walk every morning, we pass by an old man on the bench, they could appear to be a very non-living thing, and we may not think there's any substance there worth stopping to overlap with. But if we have enough curiosity and we strive to learn more about the things around us, we'll often find that there's tremendous complexity and interest in those living things. And if we stop and sit by that man on the bench and say, hello, how's your day going? Tell me your story. We may find that he has volumes of fascinating life experiences to share, when he lived in this place and this job he had and these children he raised and this child who's famous, who knows, like all the stuff that this guy may be able to share, wisdom and interesting experiences. He could maybe write, novels and novels about all these life experiences, but we have to give living things a chance, and we have to choose to value them enough, and maybe even research about them enough to see the value that's there. And so I'll stop there because I'm starting to ramble now.
Well, I love to listen to this. So would you say emotions are very crucial inside of this, to either overcome them or to follow them? So if you say, okay, curiosity, follow your curiosity perhaps, but sometimes you keep them close, you shut them inside of you and you don't follow it. Or how did you overcome your fear of socialism, of going out? So what's your personal experience in this?
Yeah. So when I kind of left home after high school, my older brother gave me this sage advice. He said, Trevor, every day do something that takes you outside your comfort zone. And it was simple, but it was really well targeted for my weakness.
Challenge.
Yeah. And I went and had some life experiences. And I realized that every time I left my comfort zone, I don't know if you saw on social media a while back, there was like a little circle that said comfort zone, and then a big circle far away that said where the magic happens.
Yes.
And I learned that like the magic of life happens outside my comfort zone. Rarely in my comfort zone do I discover new things. Do I learn? Do I grow? Do I connect? Do I get my biopsychosocial needs met? Right? I'm stagnant inside my comfort zone, and pretty soon my comfort zone can become quite miserable. It can become isolating. It can become lonely. And so I just, through risking putting myself out there and having rewarding experiences, I was motivated to keep doing it. But I needed that kind of push, maybe from my brother and others. And my mom didn't allow me to like stay inside my comfort zone. She would kind of push me out constantly, which really helped me figure it out over time.
So you get the right people around you that push you or pull you, or so it's very crucial to with whom you are connected or who is around you. Would you say this?
Powerful. Yeah. Our environments can really keep us stuck or pull us out. So the right partner, the right friend, the right child, sometimes you have a really extroverted child that can take you by the hand and say, let's go do this thing. So yeah, finding friends that will help support that cause. There's another quote I heard that says something like, love casteth out fear. And that was really motivating to me too, because I from a young age, I did feel a love towards other people. I'm a psychologist now. I always felt this desire to connect and help. I wanted that. And so that was a motivator. And I realized, if I love someone enough, I'm willing to tolerate the risk of even rejection, right? If there's a way to have a relationship with them or to help them in some way if they're struggling. So I think sometimes mantras like that can be really powerful in those moments where our brain and body are telling us to pull back and avoid, to say, you know what, my love is going to conquer this. Like I care enough about this person that even if they reject me, like it's worth the risk. That, that
Wow,
kind
that's
of mentality.
powerful. Yeah, to connect to love and to follow love to other people, just to yes, this is powerful. Yes, love conquers all. I would totally agree. But you have got children. Are they challenging you too to get you out of your comfort zone? Well, I am a mother of four, and I know from my children, if they told me, "Oh, mom, let's do this," and I thought, "Oh, I've never done this." But I think, okay, she loves to do it, so go. This
Yes,
sometimes can be challenging. Oh, how is it going with your children? Did they take you out of your comfort zone?
constantly. Yes. um, yeah, I mean, they're all, I have 5 kids and they're very different and unique and they have different interests. And so, I have a son who just loves science and he's always introducing me to new concepts with, biology and plants and animals and new things he's learned. He's like, let's go rock hounding and let's go birding and let's plant some things in our, and it's just so fun because it's not maybe my natural interest, but when,
Yeah.
when I've just joined him in his journey, I've started to appreciate like rocks. Who would have thought that there's an amazing history behind every rock, or watching things grow in a garden, or planting something from a seed and seeing it develop and to be able to bear fruit and be able to taste that and be like, I was a part of this and I, got to experience this whole journey with this plant. So yeah, there's a lot of just letting myself accept their bids to connect around the interests that they have has introduced me to a lot more variety in my life that I now appreciate more and can connect with. Like now when I go on walks, and not necessarily my son introduced me to birding because I had a friend that did that too, but he's
Mhm.
continued my passion. It's not just a shadow in a tree when I see a bird. It's like I know what kind of bird it is, and I have binoculars, or I have a camera that allows me to zoom in and see its colors and textures, and I understand, I research them enough where I know their behaviors, I know where they're migrating from and their special powers, and so it's really fascinating. I get really excited when I see certain birds that are rare and are just happening to me, migrating through, and I can add them to my life list. And so there's things like that that add a lot of vitality to life that kids can introduce you to. And maybe it's, yeah, new sports or dancing or games that they have often at a younger age an energy level that we as parents don't have, and they can get us off the couch and get us
Yes.
reconnecting with nature in ways that we probably wouldn't without their impetus. So I think it's awesome if we can accept that and realize that while we're doing what they enjoy, we're also getting to connect with them at a really deep level. And so it's a win-win.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree with this. Well, actually, how would you say, because the topic happiness is still your topic, and how do you guide your children just knowing about this? Is there anything that you would say, okay, I like to make something different here, or to raise them differently, or what do you give your children?
Yeah. I think, having studied this and having kind of been through some of it myself, I do have, a couple kids that are also more introverted who have that tendency of avoiding things that cause them initial
Mhm.
anxiety. And so in that case, I'm also a therapist, so I understand exposure therapy, which is basically that our anxiety of something goes down with time with prolonged exposure to it. If we consistently do something that's hard for us, it'll eventually get easier. We'll eventually learn things that we had maybe exaggerated in our mind. There's something called the anxiety curve where with exposure, anxiety goes up, 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 but then it will always peak. And if you keep exposing yourself to that scary thing, it'll eventually come down. Your
Mhm.
physiology, your body will calm down. And then these two really critical things happen in your mind. You can realize, one, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. That typically happens. And
Mhm.
two, I was more able to deal with it than I thought. And when those realizations come to your mind, it's really empowering and there's a lot of confidence to be able to do something like that again. So here's an example that maybe sounds mean as a parent, but we went to some caves south of our town, and I had one of my younger kids hadn't really done this yet. And so he was really nervous. He was certain that there was bears or cougars in these caves and he didn't want to go in. And I know my son really well. And I knew that the moment he gets in there, he's going to love it because he really likes, he likes things like this. And so I said, okay, Miles is his name. I know you're scared, but I can reassure you there's no wild animals in these caves. I've been in these caves lots of times. And so we're going to go in, right? Even though it's scary. And once you get in there, you're going to see that it's safe and it's super fun. And so he kind of resisted, and I just kind of picked him up and said, "We're going, here we go." And he's like, "Oh, I'm scared, oh no," and his anxiety was going up, 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 up. But we
Yeah.
get in the caves, we turn our lights on, and like within a minute, his anxiety was down, and he was loving it, and he was exploring, and everything was good, right? He realized, okay, there's no bears in here. This is actually really fun.
What an
And so
adventure.
yeah, like it's really critical as parents that we don't just feed into our kids' anxiety and let them avoid the things that could
Mhm.
really enrich their lives. And it may not be a cave, that's not that substantial, but it could be people that they're avoiding. It could be opportunities for
Mhm.
learning. And so we have to have that awareness that our kids need exposure, and through exposure, they'll get more comfortable with things that initially they're pulling back from, and that we can be the one to help bridge that gap for them. So that's one simple way, or not always simple. Sometimes it's easy because or difficult
Yeah.
because you may get a lot of resistance. But another thing is just at dinner or when you're with your kids, say, "Hey, how have you overlapped with living things today? What's a new way you overlapped? Who did you overlap with?" Just that concept of, did you deeply engage and connect with living things? And we're saying, "Hey, what should we do this evening to overlap? Are we going to go overlap with nature? Are we going to overlap with each other? Are we going to overlap with our pet?" Like, how do we regularly find ways to dive under that water, and not just pass or spectate or wade? And kids nowadays with technology and video games, I mean,
Mhm.
teenagers in the US spend like 9 hours on average on technology a day, right? And it's not necessarily a horrible thing. They could be doing, some productive things there, but that can start to eclipse these other valuable ways of overlapping with more living things. And the
Mhm.
the danger, right, with too much technology time is if it starts to eclipse or take away from other healthy activities, a
Yes.
kid who can become really malnourished socially and psychologically because they're doing
Mhm.
too much of just one thing. They don't have that diversity. It's like, they're eating a meal with all sugar, but they're not getting all the other vitamins and minerals. And so as a parent, we want to encourage balance of activities. Yeah, some screen time is great, but also let's get out and spend some time in nature. Let's be physically active. Let's connect with people. And that's going to lead to a kid having all their psychological and social needs met, so they're more fulfilled.
Yes, probably to use all your senses, to
Yeah.
make room for all your senses, to engage with your senses, not only with your eyes on the digital things on the screen, but also with your taste, your touch, your hearing, and everything. And if you can open up, there is the engagement, I think. Would you
Yeah.
agree? Yeah.
Absolutely. There's actually a section in the book where I was talking about how, it's interesting that like the more advanced, like video games get, or movies get, it's the video games that are the most lifelike that we most enjoy, that are the
Mhm.
most, like the visuals are so good, and the sound is so good. And I mean, there's even people talking about, if we can add, like technology that will send out a scent, or vibration, people will like it even more. And so it's
Mhm.
interesting, right? Like, if the most lifelike is the most valued, what if we just put the technology aside and just go directly to life?
Yeah,
That's the
right.
highest level of like, it's like it's the highest level of visual, and it's real, and we can touch it, and we can smell it, and we can hug it, like it's real. And so maybe we
Yeah.
can bypass the arbitrary and go straight to the real, if because it is more rewarding to smell and to see and to hear, to fully be absorbed in an experience. As another example, we were underneath the Teton Mountains one time with some friends, and we were just riding back to our campsite on bikes past this lake. And we saw this ramp, this like cement ramp going into the water near a dock. And for whatever reason, I don't remember who even thought of it. Someone says, "I wonder what would happen if we rode our bikes down that ramp into the water," right? And we're like, "Well, let's just try it," So we all, rode our bikes down in different formations, and it was just this incredible thing. Like, it just sent up these like wings of water on the sides of the bike, and once you got to a certain depth, it would like flip you over the handlebars into the water, and we all did this over and over and just had a blast, right? And again, I'm sure you could create a video game where you could do something like that, and it would be cool visuals. But it's different when you're actually on the bike in the water, feeling the coolness of it. The full experience was there when you did it for real. And so I think, yeah, we can encourage our kids in those ways. So like, go do it for real. It'll be even more magnificent than just, watching it digitally happen.
Yes, and I love this picture of really being the adult and taking your kid literally by the hand if they have got the anxiety, and to say, "Hey, let's do this together. I'm
Yeah.
here with you. I guide you, and let's do this together." and then
Yes.
they can go through it. They still have the anxiety, it's not gone away, but they also have the security part, or yes, you as your their protection actually, to say,
Right.
okay, mom or dad is telling me, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Somehow they can feel safer. Or yeah, I don't know how to describe this, but I think it's crucial really to take them by the hand
Yes, it's,
to go.
it's they say our early attachment with our kid is so critical because if we can form a strong attachment with them, there's trust and safety, and we can become their secure base that actually allows them to go and explore the world because they know if, something horrible happens, they know where they can come back to. They know we're
Mhm.
reliable. And especially if we're going with them into these new adventures, right, they're even more likely to explore and learn and grow. And that's so good for their development physically and cognitively, for them to go out and be stimulated by new environments and new situations, and increases their confidence to be able to do that as adults, to go into lots of new situations and to be able to figure it out and to know that, hey,
Mhm.
even though this is new and kind of scary, I know from past experience, if I go in, I'll figure it out and I'll be able to enjoy it and have a positive experience. And I know the resources I can pull back to or I can turn to if I need some extra support to make it through. And
Yes.
that's a winning recipe for kids, right? That they say that if kids have had very limited experiences, done a lot of just one thing, maybe just lots of video game time, not that that's again a horrible thing in and of itself, but that can limit the skills that they would have developed if they would have tried lots of various activities with support, right? Then they're more courageous to go into new work environments, to go into some relationships and to have success.
Yes, that's wonderful. So, okay, what would you say you are particularly good at? You have done so many things. What is your superpower? What would you say? Just
Oh, that's a
changing a
that's a
little.
great question. There's a lot of things I struggle at, and I have a lot of weaknesses, and I'm very aware of those.
No, I don't like to talk about your weakness.
But yeah, I think,
Take it positive.
yeah, let me think about this one for a second, actually. Um, yeah, I think I have a passion for yeah, for helping people connect with more in life. Maybe I'll just put it that way, and helping them figure out how to get around those barriers or obstacles to have the most enriched, ennobled life possible. I think that's just so exciting to see people thriving and flourishing, and my life gets better too, right? If my kids are thriving, if my wife is thriving, if my community is thriving, if my students are thriving, if my clients are thriving, I get to live in that same world where lots of people are thriving, and that's a great place to live. And that's not my primary motive, I wouldn't say, for doing it, but there's just so much reward in seeing people connect with more and realize life has so much more to offer. I work with a lot of clients who are depressed and kind of inactive and isolating. And sometimes I like to think of it like there's this landscape painting, and down in this corner, there's this 20% darkness. And, if this landscape painting represents our life, we all have that dark corner, those shadows, and they're hard and they're real. And it would be
Mhm.
naive to pretend like they don't exist. But sometimes we fixate on that dark corner. We're just looking at that one part so intensely, ruminating that that's all we start to see. We think our whole life is that one dark corner. And it's so awesome to help people pull back and realize, okay, this is real. A few of these things we can work on, other things we just can't do anything about. So maybe we can accept those. And that can free us up to then live in and appreciate the other 80% of our life for 80% of our life, and not spend 100% of our life on just the 20% dark, but have a balanced life. And that's when we can again start to meet those biopsychosocial needs in a better way again, because we have a balanced life. We work on our problems for part of it, and then we enjoy and bathe in all the goodness for the other part.
Yes, that's great. I love this, to change the lens that you're looking through and to expand and see different things that are more, yes, coming better, are positive, and this is all your life. It's not just the little part. You have got so much more, and just look at the other things and on the outside. I love this. Yes, what is it that you help people with? Do you have a specific offer for them? You told us that you're a therapist and psychologist, and where can people find you? Where can they reach out? What do you do to help them?
Yeah, so I'm a professor, so I teach full time, and so I strive to help my students in my classes. And Then I just have a practice 1 day a week, and I don't really have openings there, but I do have a website where I have some information. It's drtrevorpeterson.com. And that it's SEM, so you can look that up. And then on there's some resources. The book is available on Amazon. It's Overlap the Heart of Happiness, and there's a lot of the content we talked about today is in there, and much more if that is of interest or seems of value to you. And I'm actually just starting a YouTube channel. I'm working on my first video right now, actually editing it. So I'm going to have a channel out that's going to be called Mental Health Help: Tools to Thrive. And so that will be coming out soon. And I'm hoping that'll be a way, even a more accessible way, because YouTube's free, where people can, engage with some of these ideas that I think can open their life up and help them connect to even more the life has to offer, which I think is awesome.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. What a brilliant topic. I really enjoyed it. And I think everyone can relate to this, because who doesn't want to be happy? So thank you for being my guest here on the podcast, Renew Motherhood. And yes, thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Blanka. It's great to be here.
And please stay tuned and follow the podcast Renew Motherhood with the upcoming episodes.